Zooming in. We'll begin and ask Coach Smart for just maybe a few opening remarks on the signing day from today, and then we'll go to questions. Coach?
Yeah, as everybody probably knows, there's a limited number of spots we've got left in terms of recruiting, and most of our signing class was finished up in December. But we did have a few guys added to the group today. Certainly proud of the group we've got. I'm excited about this recruiting class. Number one reason I'm excited is because I guess 19 of them are mid-years. We got 19 mid-year enrollees who have been very impactful in adding depth to our roster. But as they begin to work out and go through our academics, our equipment staff, our nutrition staff, our player development staff, everybody has commented about this group, how serious they are, how well-mannered they are, and how they handle their business. So that's always good to know you got the right kind of kids in your organization. And then we added some guys today that we're certainly excited about that I'm sure you guys will want to talk about and ask about. And I'll open that up to you guys.
Okay, let's go to questions. Let's start with Dean Legge, and then we'll go to Zach Klein.
Hey, Kirby, two questions from me. Number one, have you seen or did it help at all with recruiting in this class 23 or 24 after the win over Alabama and capturing a national championship? And then very specifically, Smith from Appleton County, having watched him play live, he can really get to the quarterback. What do you think about his potential just in the near future?
Have I seen a major impact in the win or the national championship? I don't know that you can, make that tangible. I don't know that you can kind of see that or feel that. Certainly, the time we had spent on the road, there was a lot of, congratulations, pats on the back, all those things in terms of recruiting. I think it gets you in the conversation with maybe more national kids. We were already in the conversation with most national kids and certainly with in-state kids. So it may validate the things you work towards, but I don't think it's going to close the deal for these kids. I really don't think winning the national championship moves the needle in terms of one kid's decision or the other. It just might get you in the conversation. Kids today are obviously worried about, other things outside of just winning a national championship. 10 years ago, it was probably a bigger deal than it is today, where they put their weight in other categories. Darius Smith is a kid we're excited about. We've loved. He's got a great work ethic. He's from, rural town down there, and he does a wonderful job every time he's been up here of competing, working out. He's got a lot of growth potential. He's long. He runs well, and kids that are that size that run well tend to do well in our system. And he played like a receiver at times, and he's running track right now, and he's one of the fastest track kids in that area. So we're certainly excited about him. He's got a lot of developing to do.
Coach, I remember one coach telling me they spends about 75% of the kids' freshman year breaking them down from entitlement. You mentioned the kids you already have in school and how they're hitting the ground running. Is that just a testament to the guys that in this era of me, NIL, what can I do for me, that they're coming together already for the betterment of the team and the organization?
It's a credit to the kids there. I don't like acknowledging or saying that it's breaking kids down, because I don't ever want to. People call it de-recruitment, but really it's education is what it is. Of what do you value? Do you value your education? Do you value doing things the right way? And what are you learning from the older players in the organization? And a lot of our older players have to impart their knowledge and wisdom on these young guys, because they're coming in and you don't want them to make the same mistakes you do. But this group has been uniquely special. I'm not talking about talent. You can write about their talent and you can check their accolades, and, some highly rated, some, maybe you don't think they're good enough rated wise. I don't care. I'm going off how they treat people. Are they on time? Do they have the self-discipline to do what they're supposed to do and go run early because they're a little heavy? They've all shown the propensity to do that, and that excites me.
All right, let's go to Roddy Nabulsi, and then we'll come back to Mike Griffith.
Hey, Coach, if you would, tell me a little bit about the backstory behind Andrew Paul and Trey Scott's efforts on the recruiting trail, if you would.
Andrew Paul is a guy that we found out about and discovered, and Dale did a tremendous job combing the country looking for the best backs we could possibly bring into the University of Georgia. And anytime you go across the state of Texas, there's a ton of good football players, really good high school football in Texas. And Dale reached out to me and sent me his huddle link, and I got to watch him. I really liked him. Dale knew the kid, knew the family. He's 210-pound back. He's got a great demeanor about him. He loves working out in the weight room, and just tremendous background checks where he's played, and the people he's played for have a lot amount of respect for him. And then getting to spend time around him on the actual visit validated that. It comes from a military background family, which fits a criteria for us in terms of discipline and being made of the right things. So once we checked out all that, it became, is he good enough? And we loved him. We think he's a really good football player, a great academic student, won a state championship in high school. And if you look at these guys that joined us today, I think almost every one of them won a state championship in high school, which is another indicator of success and winning and coming from good teams, which is of great value to us.
Hey, Kirby, detouring down here to Mobile, and speaking of championships and success and winning, wasn't too long ago we were talking about number of Georgia players who could be drafted. You could have a record class of 15 guys potentially drafted this year, a lot of them down here in Mobile. Where does that fit in for a lot of these recruits and what they see in Georgia? And if you could just talk about, I don't know if pride's the right word, but looking at these prospects that you've developed and helped move on in their careers.
I think you're alluding to the fact that you said that in a press conference once, and I got on you, and I would still remind you that 15 is unrealistic. Okay. If it happens, then you can call me a liar. All right. But we've got a great group of guys coming out. I think that's very evident when you look at our current roster here and the guys we have training, that we have some holes. I mean, there's, every year I always say it, you go in that team meeting, the meeting after you're through with your season, regardless of how your season ended, you're looking around going, where's everybody at? Uniquely this case, there's 19 guys in the back of the room that are filling a lot of big holes in the front of the room. And that doesn't happen overnight, but I'm proud of those kids that are down there. I have to be honest with you, I've been so swamped with things going on, I haven't got to watch a lot, but I always like to check in on our guys at the Senior Bowl. I like to go to the Senior Bowl. I haven't gotten that opportunity with the calendar changes and some of the things we've been through, but I get reached out to from GMs and coaches working it that they've been really impressed with our guys' practice habits, demeanor, the way they carry themselves. Those are all things we try to teach here at Georgia, and our guys buy into that. So I'm excited to see where they go, and I'm excited to see them work out here at our facility when they get the opportunity.
All right, next two questions. Let's go to Chip Towers and then Seth Emerson.
So Jay, you alluded to this a little bit, that you've kind of been on the run, seems like, really ever since you got back from Indianapolis, just the way the calendar works and everything else. I just wonder, going into today, this period being what it is, this signing period being what it is compared to the other one, how much mystery were you guys coming into this day with? And are you done? Is there anything else that can happen today or in the subsequent days?
Yeah, there wasn't much mystery. Today was the most different signing day I had. I mean, we've had things going on like here in-house that we were working on, our team, quality control, different positions we have to fill in terms of GAs, different opportunities. So we've been interviewing, dealing with different roles on our staff that we're trying to fill. So I haven't even stopped for signing day, where most of the time, that was all you did today. You dedicated today to that. That certainly is a December movement in the world we live in. So there wasn't a lot going on. And I can't think of anything, moving forward in terms of signees out of high school that would still be out there. I'm missing something.
Kirby, I know that with NIL, that's not something y'all can arrange. And so I don't know what you're limited, you can say and whatever, but how tangible a factor do you think that is now in recruiting? Yeah.
Tangible being rated on a scale of 1 to 10, or like
Sure.
it's extremely tangible. I mean, it is it's like you mentioned, we can't set that up. We can't. The sell for what we're, at least what I'm finding in recruiting, is it used to be you sold championships, you sold maybe facilities development, certainly was a primary sell. Now development has taken a step back, which it shouldn't, and facilities, academics, what we can do for you, life after football, those things have taken a back burner to NIL for a lot of people. And once you explain to kids that we can't set that up, we can't promise that, but what people are doing is they're validating their NIL by showing what their current roster makes and showing what their current players are able to do. And the more marketable their players, the more the dollar signs fall in these young kids and parents' minds. And I think sometimes they're getting misled into the numbers that are actually out there. And it becomes propaganda, which recruiting is always propaganda, right? It's how you use it. But the sell, when you're selling the development of a young man from Jordan Davis and you're selling what he became, that's much more enjoyable to sell that story than to sell what he made in NIL, because you number one, you can't guarantee that. Number two, to each kid, it may apply differently. Some guys are at developmental positions and they're gonna have to work really hard. But I'm not of the opinion kids should be making decisions based on that. And you're probably recruiting the wrong guy if that's all they're making their decision based on. So I think a lot of colleges are having to look inside out at who they recruit and why they recruit them, because 10% of these kids we're all going to recruit. They're the best of the best. It's the next group that you better be careful who you're recruiting, because they're going to make up a majority of your roster.
All right, next question. We'll see if Kip Adams has a question, then we'll come to Mark Weiser. Okay, Mark, you want to go ahead?
Kirby, obviously, besides recruiting, you've spent some time recently making some staff additions. I want to ask you the reasons you wanted to bring BMAC back to coach the receivers, and then how you envision Mike, his role as an analyst, and then also with the defensive position. Do you expect that'll be an outside linebackers hire?
We'll make that decision as we go forward. But in regards to BMAC, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Brian and the job he's done. I've always respected him on the road recruiting. Had a lot of years at Alabama that I recruited against him in the state of Georgia. Coached him as a player here in terms of the way he carried himself as a special teams player, a leader. Got a lot of respect for him. He's worked for people on our staff, worked with people on our staff, and I'm big on fit. And does someone fit the culture we're trying to create? We don't look at a lot of things that people in the outside world look at. I look at, can they make our staff better? Can they make our players better? Do they fit our culture? And he checked the box on the most of those and was the best fit and wants to be here. That's important to me and what we create at Georgia. And in terms of Mike, there's a lot of value in the experiences he's had. He's been a head coach. He's been an offensive coordinator in our conference. He knows our conference, the 5-hour radius we recruit in. He's extremely versed in that. He has a ton of relationships that create value. And as far as role, that'll play out as we go along.
Thank you.
All right, next question from Jed May, and then to Palmer Thomas.
Hey, Kirby, just two questions. One, just what does EJ Lightsey bring to this class, that inside linebacker? And two, speaking of Kristen Miller, he said, consistency played a big part in his recruitment. How important was that for him, and just, continuing to recruit him as his recruitment went up and down? And how important is that, with kids nowadays with all the different things going on in recruiting?
That's probably the number one determining factor on a high character, high quality kid. He comes from a tremendous family. And consistency, when I've lost kids that I feel like we should have gotten, probably the number one factor was, did we recruit them with the correct consistency? And when a kid honestly tells you he's going to another place because they recruited him more consistently, it makes it even more evident that you've got to be consistent. And I'll say this, we and Trey Scott and staff were extremely consistent with Christian Miller, and it paid off because the message didn't change. The consistency didn't change. He valued relationships, and he saw, December, what happens with guys moving all over the place. And when you've got a little bit of continuity, it certainly moves you up the board and the ladder in these kids' eyes. And we've been able to have that and sustain winning success. So you tend to attract people that have the same mindset you do. And I think Christian and Trey have a lot of the same mindset. Christian Miller's a worker. He's one of the most impressive kids in terms of leadership I've seen at this age. He willed and pushed that Cedar Grove team to success. And I value that. I value that, seeing the kids leaving here that were just in the last class. So I'm excited about what he can do. Going back to EJ, he was a kid we had in camp. He's a kid we never stopped recruiting. We felt very strongly about. He ran really well in our camp. And, we put a lot of value on camp evaluations because it's the only thing we see with our eyes. Once the character checks out, academics check out, play tape checks out, everything goes to the camp. And this guy did a great job at our camp and is not afraid of work. And in the day and age of speed, space play, covering people, he's a tremendous athlete.
Kirby, last signing day, you talked about how wide receiver was a big need. And obviously that need has grown through the draft and the portal. What is it that you all saw in Dylan Bell, and what does he bring to the table?
Dylan's another one that came and worked out. He came through and we had him in camp, and he was actually here the same day Cole was. And he stood out. I mean, he's big. He's built like a running back. He played a lot of running back. He's got power. He's got good hands. He's got tremendous work ethic. He goes to an extremely academic high school, which checks a box for us in terms of being able to handle the academics here at the University of Georgia. So when we saw him work out, that gave us validation that what we saw on tape was accurate. He's a tremendous young man. So when you start looking for size, speed on the perimeter, he has really good size. He has good speed. So that was something that fired us up.
All right, we got time for a couple more. Let's take Stuart Steele, and then we'll go to Connor Riley.
Hey, Kirby. I just wanted to go back to your D-line class. How much does it help? You kind of touched on this earlier, but having guys like Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt and even Jalen Carter, who's still with the team, that you can point to as kind of like what these players can become in your program?
It helps. I mean, it's going to help more if those guys are successful in the NFL or get drafted high, because I think that'll give validation to Trey Scott's development, that he took some guys that might not have been the highest rated coming out, but yet they may be the highest rated coming out of college as opposed to high school. And he's a tremendous teacher. I mean, Trey he's a technician. He sells himself on not a lot of flash, but on work and developing young men into good defensive linemen and better people. And he's got a little bit of proof now to validate that with, Travon Walker, Devontae Wyatt, and Jordan Davis all coming out of that room. Those are three guys that are going to be really good NFL football players.
Hey, Kirby, you sort of touched on this a little bit earlier, but with all the changes that we've seen in college football, transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, how is you guys as a staff and program change what you are looking for specifically in guys who sort of fit the culture that you want to establish at Georgia?
How have we changed?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Well, I think we're ever changing. Like, there's not like, I can't say we changed from this year to last year. I just think it's subtle. And the way things are going, you're going to have to continue to do that. You have to look at your roster and say, we need great players, right? But we need enough core players that believe in the values of the organization to outweigh any blinking lights. And, sometimes a blinking light might be a talented player that doesn't completely all the way buy in, but you've got enough core players that the voice doesn't get heard, and I think that's, we had that last year. We had a really good group of core leaders. They also happen to be good players. That's when you get to win a national championship, but you got to be selective over going really far away from home. How big a portal risk is this kid? Is NIL so important to him that he's not going to be effective as a player? Because it's easy to sit here and say, what can I make NIL? How can you help me? Well, I can help you a whole lot more if you come out of college with a degree and you come out of college and get drafted. There are a lot more commas on those salaries than there are on NIL deals. And you have to be able to explain that to kids, and they have to understand it and buy into it, because a lot of kids come from a society of, I want now, me, self-gratification. And we really need team, long-term buy-in, develop, be the best player you can when you leave. The hard part, Connor, is figuring out which each kid is. Does he really buy into that, or is he just providing lip service? And that's where the tough decisions are made as a head coach and a position coach of which guys you take, because you don't really know until they get here sometimes.
Thank you, Coach Smart. Thanks everyone for zooming in, and everybody have a great